Hello and welcome to another video. So recently I rearranged my bookshelves, and on this bookshelf I have all of the books that I have read, and on this bookshelf is all of the books that I have not read. And I got this idea from Pickle Reads. I saw her doing this like unwrapping of all of her books a while ago, so like I'll link her videos below. Basically, I just wrapped up all of the books I have not read, and then I'm going to randomly select some to read and kind of force myself to get through my physical TBR. I mean, honestly, there's some treasures on here. I know there is, like I wrapped them. So I'm really excited to just like read these books. So in order to make this like the most fair, to kind of seem like I'm not cheating, I asked people on my Instagram story to select one of the books, like to select a shelf and then to select a book 1 through 25, I think. From that list of people's responses, I had my fiance pick one so that there's no possible chance that I'm cheating, there's no biases going on. So the book that was selected was Shelf 2, book 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. After I wrapped them, I put them all in like different piles and I kind of mixed them up as I was putting back on the shelf, so I don't know what this book is. Although I did write on here kind of a very general genre of what it is. So this is YA horror. That's exciting. Would it be fun if I try to guess what book it is first? So I don't have too many YA horrors on my shelf, and it's a paperback. I think this might be Bad Girls Never Die, Good Girls Never Die, something like that. I think that's what it is. Oh, even better. Oh, I'm excited. What a great way to start this. So this book is Sanctum by Madeleine Roux. This is the second book to the Asylum series. So here's book 1. I read this a couple of years ago, but this is such a good book. It's so fun. So Asylum is about this kid who goes to this like summer school, or maybe it's regular school, and the school is in a renovated asylum, and it's haunted, and it's so great. It's such a fun read. I'm so excited to finally be reading the second one. Like, this has been on my list for so long, and I just never actually sat down and read it, and I'm so glad doing this video is working exactly as it was supposed to be. So I'm going to read about half of this book, and then I will come back and give an update. Alright, hello. So I just wanted to give a little update on Sanctum. So I'm on page 70, so I'm not really that far into the book. Originally I thought I wasn't going to be able to do very much updates because this is a sequel, but the way that it's written, it's kind of like it continues on the story, but I think I will be able to tell you what's happening without spoiling the first book. So I read the first book, Asylum, a good number of years ago. I want to guess maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was a little worried I wasn't going to remember all of the details, so I'd be lost in the second book, but they do a very good job of catching you up with who the characters are and some of the story from the first book, so it's not really that big of a concern anymore. So in the first book, the main character Dan goes to a college for a summer program where he makes some friends, and then crazy things happen. Sanctum takes place in the school year after the summer has happened. Dan kind of feels like he needs some closure from what happened over the summer, so him and his friends are going back to the school to try and maybe kind of figure out what it is that even happened and kind of explain some things away and maybe give them some closure so they can stop having nightmares. So far I'm having a good time reading it. The writing is a little bit younger than I remember it being, but I mean, it's a YA book, so that's kind of expected. Also, I think it's funny, I found a bookmark on page like 50 or something, and I guess I had started reading this before and I just put it down and never got to it. I don't remember a single thing, like everything I read felt like brand new material. So it must have been like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I'm really glad though that wrapping up the books is forcing me to read this, because I really do enjoy the story and I'm glad to get back to it. Also, I kind of forgot to say in my intro, but I just want to say thank you to everybody who participated on my Instagram story and commented. I have a lot of responses, and I think I'm gonna just use some of those responses in later months. I think it'll make it easier, but I'm also hoping that you know that I'm not cheating. I'm not like going ahead and figuring out what these books are. It's still pretty mysterious to me. Anyways, so yeah, I'm having a fun time reading this. I'm going to maybe do one more update before I finish the book, and I will see you then. Okay, so when I said I was gonna do one more update, I lied. I finished the book and I kind of learned some information about the book that I want to tell you about before I get into my star rating and final thoughts on it. Originally, I had no idea how many books were in the series. I knew there was Asylum, I knew there was Sanctum, and I thought there was probably one more. Well, there's one more in the series. It's actually a trilogy. However, there's 7 books in the series. So there are 4 novellas that go in between each of the stories. So there's a prequel that comes before book 1, and then there's a 1.5, 2.5, and a 3.5, which is kind of a lot. I don't really know how I feel about that, and I probably won't continue the series. I'll tell you why. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. This is a fun little horror story. So it continues after Asylum. So as I said before, Asylum takes place over the summer, and this book takes place during the school year right afterwards in the same college. The group of friends come and they try to figure out what kind of paranormal situation was happening in book 1. Because it's a sequel and I don't want to give any spoilers away, that's all I'm going to say for the summary of the book. However, the reasons why I'm giving it 3 stars are not really content and have way more to do with writing style. In this book, the characters are 17, 18 years old. I mean, they're going to a college for an overnight college experience kind of situation. So, you know, practically adults. But this reads way younger than that. If you try to guess how young they were just off of the writing style, you'd probably guess between like 12 and 14, honestly, depending on the situation they're in. Like, I'll just give you one example. So they're trying to get some boards off of a window, like a window that's been boarded up. One of the people from the college came with them and he starts ripping the boards down. The main character, Dan, is like, oh, good thing he came along because we would never be strong enough to tear those down. Like, excuse me, you're a 17-year-old boy in high school. You're telling me you can't rip it down? Like, I know that's a generalization, but like, there's not a big difference between a 17-year-old male and a like 22-year-old male in terms of physical structure. I mean, there's always exceptions. In the very broadest term, it was just kind of a silly thing, you know. It's almost distracting. Especially because there was 3 of them, and I really think that ripping boards off of a boarded up house is not that difficult for 3 17-year-olds to handle. Another problem I had was with the pacing. So the pacing was very fast, which is what you would expect in a YA novel. However, because of this, a lot of the scenes kind of had the same intensity. So by the time we're getting further and further into the book, I wasn't caring as much because everything had the same intensity. So something major that was happening later had the same intensity as them sneaking out earlier in the story, if you know what I mean. So it just kind of made the build-up not feel real. I was also just having a hard time connecting to the story and to the characters themselves. Like, they were kind of flat and honestly annoying. I really enjoyed book 1, and book 2 didn't really stand up for a good sequel. If you think about the stuff that happened in the book, yes, it did stand up for a good sequel, but the writing style did not. It just wasn't good. But the biggest issue I had with this, the real reason I was giving it 3 stars, because like those other issues aren't really that big. It just kind of like takes away from some of my enjoyment of the story. But the biggest issue I had with it, and the reason why I'm not going to be continuing on the series, is because of the characterization of the friends. I believe I can say that this is a paranormal story without giving anything away. I mean, if you look at the cover, it's kind of what you would expect to happen from this book. Like, it's going to be paranormal. So in book 1, the 3 main characters experience paranormal things. They could be explained away as not paranormal, but if you're in that situation, you would be like, okay, this is paranormal, like ghosts. But in Sanctum, all 3 of the characters are making it seem like it's not paranormal. They're like, oh, we can't believe this. We have to believe in reality. Where like they see little ghosts, or they like hear voices, or they have dreams or visions or whatever, and they're like, hallucinations, you're dehydrated, maybe you're on drugs. And it's just so stupid. Like, how are you gonna go through the entire first book and then have similar paranormal situations happening and be like, hallucinations? Like, I don't know, it took away from my enjoyment. And it's if they're gonna continue on like that after every paranormal thing that happens to them, I'm not interested in reading any more of the books. But anyways, this was a really fun time, and I'm so glad that I did pick this book up to read. So thank you for everybody again who gave me some answers. And I'm kind of thinking that I'm just gonna put it back on the shelf where I got it from, because I think it would be cool to see it like a progress thing. A little hard to see, but it's there. So that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.